Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a creative art prompt for your art journal. The theme for today is a night sky with the moon and some trees as a silhouette. It'll be really simple and I'll take you through every step. In addition to your watercolor supplies, you'll need a little washi tape or some kind of painter's tape and a white opaque paint like a gouache, acrylic, something like that. Okay, so we'll use our washi or your painter's tape to make a little border in whatever size your paper is. Try to just keep a little even space all the way around, and this will hold the paint in and give you a clean edge when you're done. If your tape roll is small enough, you can use it as an outline or find something circular that will work. And this will be for the moon. I'm just using a light pencil line, so that will be our little guide so we don't paint over it. The first thing we'll do is add clear water all the way around this line around the moon, and that way when we put in our sky, the paint will go only where the water is and it won't go onto the moon part. So I'm going for a blue and purpley night sky. You are welcome to use any colors that you love. We'll start by just dropping them in around the moon shape and then work our way outwards from there. This is a fun part where you can just let your mind go, relax. This is the meditative part. Just build in your sky with different shades of blues, purples, maybe a few pinks if it's sunset. Go ahead and have fun with it. We will be doing a few layers of this, so don't worry about getting all your colors in at this first stage. Now that the blues and purples are in, I'm adding a little purpley pink right through that middle area. And while it's wet, it'll all blend and mix on its own as it dries. And then towards the very bottom, I'm adding a black, really dark shade to put that shadow area. Now a fun technique you can use is a little rag or paper towel if you have it on hand and dab up a little bit of paint wherever you want to keep a little highlight. So that could be a clouds area, and we'll go through and define that later, but for now let's keep it very abstract and loose. This is a very wet painting, so if you don't have your taped edges down really securely, the water and paint could leak underneath. So you want to make sure that's secure. And also, if it helps to pin it down with a clip like I have, go ahead and do that. Okay, and after this first layer, we'll go ahead and let it dry. If you want to speed up the process, you can use a hair dryer or a craft gun to help. If you're using a hair dryer, just keep it on the low setting so you don't accidentally burn your paper. As you can see, the colors have dried a bit lighter, and some of that texture is showing through that we created with the paper towel and rag. Okay, let's go in with our second layer, same technique, and this time I'll speed up the video a little bit more. Just go ahead and keep building your layers in your color palette that you like. You can also go ahead and wet everything lightly with water first, or work in smaller sections at a time, like this. I'm doing it this way so that I have a little bit more control of where the water goes around the moon part. Okay, now that that second layer is dried, we can go in with some details now. So you want to grab your white paint. You can use acrylic paint or gouache. This Copic white opaque one is an ink. Anything that is opaque will work. We are putting in our stars and some clouds as well. If I'm only using a small amount, I just use the lid as my palette. You can get a separate dish or something washable to use if you need a bigger space. Okay, so we'll go through and add in a few outlines of where the clouds will be, and then I'm rinsing my brush, and before the paint dries, I'm blending out a few of those edges. So they're a little bit softer and they fade a little bit into the watercolor area. One thing to keep in mind is if your paint dries really quickly, sometimes acrylics can do that, you may want to work on smaller areas at a time. This Copic opaque one that I'm using doesn't dry that fast, so I went ahead and did a lot of the highlights, and then I rinsed my brush, and then using a damp brush I'm softening out all of the edges at one time. But you can definitely just do a little section at a time and build up slowly with your layers. Once you're happy with your clouds and the layers, you can start to put in the moon area, and that is just a light diluted black that I'm using. If you have gray, that'll work as well. And I'm just putting a really light wash speckled in, and as you know, there are craters on the moon. It's not an even surface, so just drop these in sort of randomly, and then you can have a few areas a little bit darker and a few areas a little bit lighter. Remember to keep some areas where the white space of the paper shows through, and that'll be a natural highlight. And I just noticed that I left a little bit of blue that got stained off the edge of that border area. If it's still damp and that happens, you can probably lift up most of that color with just using clear water on there. Okay, time for the stars. I'm using a watered down version of the white paint and loading it up on my brush and using a second brush to tap it and make little splatters. And this will give you the little stars in the night sky. So go ahead and put in as many as you like. And you can also use a little rag or cloth or paper towel to pick up any stars on areas you don't want. Okay, once that's dry, we'll move on to the next step. So using a very saturated black, if you have a very dark navy blue or anything really dark, that will work. You want to have enough contrast that these trees at the bottom show up as a silhouette. So you can start with that center trunk, and then with the very end of your brush, start with very small little strokes, and as you work your way down, they get longer and longer. It's roughly a triangle shape. You're just putting in an abstract stylized tree. The more paint you have on your tree, the more that tree will come into the foreground. Using more of a diluted paint will push them to the background and they will look a little bit more misty and as if they're off into the distance. As you build your tree line, remember that you can stagger your trees. They don't have to all be the same height. It will give your painting a little bit more visual interest to have them look a little bit more natural. So some will be higher and some will be lower. Okay, and for the very last final step, we'll just put in a few shooting stars and a few that are sparkling. They're shining a little bit brighter than the others. Sometimes just adding these finer little details can really bring together your whole piece. Okay, we're all done. Let's peel off that tape. Just pull slowly back on itself and it should be pretty easy to pull off. You don't want to rip your paper by going too fast, so just go slow. This is always the moment of truth where you can see if your edges stayed clean. Sometimes you get paint underneath and it's no problem. All you want to do is if you want to clean up any edges or little spots is just use that white paint and you can just cover them up if it bothers you. Otherwise, just leave it. I hope you guys had so much fun and thank you for joining me today. If you recreate this and put it on social media, remember to tag me so I don't miss it. I would love to see your work and all your creativity. I hope you had fun. I hope you had a chance to have a little mental downtime. And I'll see you in the next video for the next journal prompt.